What's going on, guys? Houston Sports Talk back into the video today. And today I'm going to be doing my NFL Week 4 power rankings as NFL Week 4 begins in 2 days on Thursday when the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions have a Week 18 rematch on Thursday Night Football at 7:15 in Lambeau. That's going to be a great game on Thursday night. I'm leaning towards the Packers because of at home and after what happened last year, knocking them out of making the playoffs, and they didn't even have anything to play for. Jordan Love, after a slow start in the first half last week, had a great fourth quarter and a comeback against the Saints last week. I do believe the Packers will beat the Lions, but I think either one of those teams can win it, and it's going to be a close, good game between two divisional teams. But let's go over my power rankings. What I've been doing is I've been going down from 32 to 1, and I've usually been saying when I had that team the previous week, but sadly I did lose. I don't know how, but I had my rankings from last week saved, and it's completely gone. So it looks like I have to start over. So, but I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's only, last week was only week 3. Now we're going on week 4, but I'll make sure it's not gone next week when I do the same thing on next Tuesday. All right, getting started. I always go from 32 to 1, and starting with 32, this should not be any surprise. I was contemplating which 0-3 team that had a terrible week 1 which 0-3 team that had a crushing week 3 defeat I should go with. And they both play each other this week in week 4, and they both got their asses kicked by two of the best teams in the AFC. And ultimately, I chose the Chicago Bears to put at 32. I know the Broncos lost by 50 points, but the Broncos lost, to the Miami Dolphins. I know the Bears lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. Although I think the Dolphins offense, you could probably say it's just as good as the Chiefs, if not better. I mean, they have better wide receivers. I like Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. I would say they have better running backs. I know Pacheco's pretty good. They don't have the best tight end, and probably one of the best tight ends to ever do it, and Travis Kelce. So I just think that the Broncos, even though they lost by 50, I do believe the Broncos are a better team. And going into this week 4, where these two teams match up, I think the Broncos will win and get their first win of the season. Justin Fields, I know they just gave up 70 points. I know they just gave up 70 points, but the Broncos have a solid defense. I know they were missing a couple starters, some guys that should be back this week, but the Bears' offense has been horrendous, and the Broncos' offense hasn't been terrible. Their defense was just terrible in that game. It's not like their offense was very bad. Their offense wasn't great against Miami, but it wasn't terrible, and their offense was good in week 2. Their offense was solid in week 1, although the Bears' offense has been terrible all year. Their defense has not been good, and they've given up, I think, for week 1, they gave up 38 points. Week 2, they gave up 27, and then week 3, they gave up 48. And 41 of those points were in the first quarter and 2 quarters and a half. So I got the Bears at 32, and I have the Broncos at 31. But both of them had the 2 worst defeats this weekend. 30, I have another 0-3 team. I have the Carolina Panthers. I know Carolina kind of stayed close with the Seattle Seahawks this weekend. They lost 37-27, and Andy Dalton did a really good job for over 300 passing yards. I just still think that Carolina's 0-3. They haven't played the best football. I don't think they deserve to be on the bottom 3. At 29, the Tennessee Titans only scored 3 points. How do you only score 3 points of offense when you have Derrick Henry? Because Derrick Henry was terrible. 11 carries for 20 rushing yards. DeAndre Hopkins has not been so good. Ryan Tannehill was terrible. Just threw for over 100 passing yards. And then at 28, I have the New York Giants. Their only good win came off against the Arizona Cardinals. I know the Cardinals just beat the Cowboys, but I'm not saying the Cardinals are not a good team. I think they're a better team than we all think they were going to be. But I think this past weekend was just a terrible performance by the Cowboys. That's probably one of the biggest reasons the Cardinals won. The Giants' only win came off of a game where they were down 28-7. They got crushed 40-0. They got beat 30-12. Now they're without Saquon Barkley. I don't see a reason why I have the Giants at 28. Then at 27, I have the Minnesota Vikings. If you're wondering why I have the Minnesota Vikings separated from the other 0-3 teams with Chicago, Denver, and Carolina, I believe Minnesota is better than all 0-3 teams that you see on this list. The Bears are terrible, the Broncos are terrible, and honestly, I'm sure Carolina maybe could get something going, maybe mid or end of the season, maybe go on a little bit of a run. But as of right now, they're terrible as well. Minnesota's not terrible. They just had a lot of turnover problems. They have a good offense. They have one of the, if not the best wide receiver, the second best wide receiver in the NFL, and Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins hasn't been terrible. He's been throwing way over 300 passing yards. He's been throwing like over 350 passing yards per game. He's leading the NFL in passing yards. He's been great. I just think this Vikings team is having a real problem of winning games, and they'd be 3-0 right now if turnovers weren't a thing. So if turnovers were not a problem, if turnovers did not exist, this Minnesota Vikings team would be 3-0, not 0-3. All right, at 26, I had the Las Vegas Raiders. I know the Raiders have one win, but they were not so good this week. Devontae Adams had a great week, but the Raiders are 1-2. Only scored 18 points in week 3 on Sunday Night Football. Only 10 points against the Bills week 2 and 17 against the Broncos. Jimmy Garoppolo's been terrible. He's like top 3 in interceptions thrown in the NFL this year. I know it's only week 3, but the Raiders are not looking good. At 25, I have the New York Jets. I know they have a good defense, and they beat the Buffalo Bills in week 1, but these past 2 weeks against the Cowboys and the Patriots, I know 2 good defenses, have been terrible. They just signed Trevor Siemian. Maybe he becomes a starter. Who knows? At 24, the Houston Texans just beat the crap out of the Jacksonville Jaguars 37-17. I mean, I'm glad to see my Houston Texans in the top 25. You could say that I might be being a little bit biased, but I think the Houston Texans deserve to be over all teams I've mentioned before them. They played a great week. CJ Stroud has looked great. He's number 4 in passing yards right now in the NFL. Has not thrown an interception. He's thrown 121 passes in his first 3 games, not thrown an interception. These Texans are looking good. At 23, I have another team. I think I don't remember a lot of my rankings from last week, but I can tell you this. I had the Cardinals at 32, and I had the Texans at 31. So that shows you I'm not biased if I put my team at 31. And now both teams have gone from 32 and 31 to 24 and 23. So that's pretty impressive. Both teams had great upsets against good teams, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Arizona Cardinals. And the Dallas Cowboys. The Arizona Cardinals beat the Cowboys 28-16. They had a great win, but can they keep it up? That's the question. They should be 3-0. They should have beat the Giants. They should have beat the Commanders. They should be 3-0 right now, to be honest. At 22 are the Rams. I don't want to panic on the Rams just yet because they've lost 2 games in a row, but those 2 losses have came to the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers, and they lost to the 49ers by 7 and the Bengals by 3, so I'm not going to panic on them just yet, but Stafford did not look good yesterday. I will say that. At 21, I have the New England Patriots. I really liked what I've seen from the Patriots so far. Mac Jones had a very solid performance against good defense this week, throwing 200 passing yards and 1 passing touchdown against the New York Jets. He looked great in the first 2 weeks, almost pulling off 2 upsets against 2 of the best teams in the NFL, in the Philadelphia Eagles and the Miami Dolphins. And I just been really impressed with what we've seen from Mac Jones early on in the season. And now they play another good team this week in the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see if maybe they can pull off a big upset there. At 20, you have the Washington Commanders. I know this is for a team that's 2-1. This is pretty early, but later you're going to start to see 2-1 teams starting to come down here. But I mean, yeah, the Commanders they just got their butts kicked. They deserve to be not right at 20. I think they probably should be lower down the list, but in my opinion, they just got their butts kicked. 37-3. Howell threw 4 interceptions. They don't deserve to be any higher, and they probably deserve to be lower. But since they're 2-1, they start off to a really good season. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. At 19, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They start off to a 2-0 start, but they looked terrible last night. I'm going to keep them in the top 20. See if maybe they can, get a bounce back next week against the Derek Carr-less Saints. So we'll see. Speaking of a Derek Carr-less Saints, at 18 I had the New Orleans Saints. I mean, the Saints have, I know they blew a 17-0 lead last week against the Green Bay Packers, but they've gotten off to a great start to the year, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Bucs. Yes, Jameis Winston will be the starter, but they get back Alvin Kamara. At 17, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know, they're favored to win the AFC South, but here's the truth. The Jacksonville Jaguars have been terrible to start the year. They almost lost to Indianapolis Colts in week 1. They struggled on offense and they struggled on defense a little bit against a rookie in Anthony Richardson. And then the last 2 weeks, they've only scored 26 points on offense, only scored 9 against the Kansas City Chiefs. When the Chiefs, if your defense is gonna hold the Chiefs down to 17 points, you should be able to win that game. To be honest, if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars with the team they have, and then this week against the Houston Texans, they got stomped, 37-17. They're lucky I don't have them lower down the list. At 16, I have another 1-2 team that just got their first win of the season. That's the Los Angeles Chargers. You might think this might be a little bit too high, but the Chargers did just get their first win of the season, and I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to get their second win of the season this week against the Raiders. At 15, I have the Green Bay Packers. They have Thursday Night Football, and I'm excited to see what they do this Thursday, and I really like what I've seen from them early on. At 14, I have the team that beat them in week 2, the Atlanta Falcons. At 13, I have the Ravens. And at 12, I have the team that just beat the Ravens, the Indianapolis Colts. Some people might think that's a little too high, but they just beat the Ravens in overtime. They persevered and beat the Ravens. They played a great game against the Houston Texans in week 2. They almost beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 1. I think they deserve to be in the top 15. At 11, I have the Cleveland Browns. At 10, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then getting into the top 10. At 9, I have the Detroit Lions. They just got a good win against a 2-0 team in the Atlanta Falcons. At 8, I have the Seattle Seahawks. And then at 7, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. Call me crazy. I know they started off 0-2. And some people might be upset I still have them in the top 10. Or even at 7 for that matter. But the Cincinnati Bengals are still the team that made it to the AFC Championship game. Joe Burrow is starting to look a little healthy now. And I think this team is going to start to get going here. I'm really excited to see what this team does here. At 6, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I wanted to put them lower down the list. I just didn't really see anybody to potentially put over them. Like the Bengals, I would like to, but at the same time, the Bengals are 1-2. Seahawks could have done that. It just didn't feel like it. And then 9 Lions, I didn't really think so. But yeah, I mean, I think the Cowboys at 6 is, after losing the Cardinals, it's, I think I had them on like 2 or 3 before, so they are dropping down a couple spots. But yeah, and at 5, I have the Buffalo Bills. At 4, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. At 3, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, not because of Taylor Swift. At 2, I have, and at 1 and 2, I have what I believe the 2 best teams in the NFL, 2, the San Francisco 49ers, and 1, the Miami Dolphins. And no, I don't have the Dolphins at 1 just because they just scored 70 points. Well, that's one of the reasons why. But I just feel like this Miami Dolphins team, I'm not going to say they're the best team in the NFL, but I do believe, sorry, Kansas City Chiefs, I do believe the Miami Dolphins are the best team and the most talented team all around roster. I think they have the best all-around roster, if healthy, in the AFC and maybe even the NFL. But I think that probably belongs to the San Francisco 49ers. Use them to know your thoughts on my Week 4 power rankings. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out.